right, guys, this is a clone of the MK12 Mod 1. I do have a MK12 Mod O that I should go over, but I bought that rifle already built. This rifle I completely assembled myself with the components that I decided to source, and that's what I want to go over right now. I am going to be going into detail on building this rifle, trigger, barrel, rail, bolt, etc. But what I want to go over right now is just kind of a brief rundown of the components that I used, starting with the suppressor. Now, even before we get into that, the reason that I choose to do builds like this is because of the aesthetics. You know, I like the way that they look, and everybody has their own taste. I really like the looks of the SR25, the MK11 Mod O, the reflex style suppressor that goes over the top of the barrel, similar to this Allen Engineering AEM5. We can go into detail on, you know, problems that I have read about regarding the suppressor touching the barrel at two points, having problems with harmonics. But as far as I'm concerned with the testing and the ammunition that we have put through this is easily a sub MOA rifle. I mean, the first few rounds that were factory that we put through this rifle were half MOA with 69 grain bullets. And we'll make sure and go over that once we get to the shooting part of this video. But right now, let's take a look at the components. The suppressor, of course, is Allen Engineering AEM5. I do go over the barrel profile, what it takes to set up a suppressor like this, because you have to have the right barrel profile. This is a Douglas 1 and 7 twist, 18 inches long. Probably one of the smoothest shooting rifles that I've put together. And a lot of it obviously is because the rifle length gas system. It's got a longer dwell time, and it just makes everything cycle slower and smoother. I didn't do anything, we'll get to that. So anyway, the barrel is from Compass Lake Engineering. It's a Douglas 1 and 7. It's the Ops 12 contour, specifically made for the collar with the shoulder that this suppressor shoulders up to. And I should note that with this barrel, you do have the option of a head-spaced bolt. So I took that. I go into detail on it a little bit, putting this together. It gives you better reliability and ultimately better accuracy, straight from them. So I have a Landtac bolt in this rifle. I just swapped out the a Landtac carrier. I just swapped out the Landtac bolt and put the Compass Lake that was specifically head spaced for this barrel. A nice option to have if you guys do go down that road for this specific barrel, that specific manufacturer and that dealer. Another thing that I really like about these rifles is the rail. This is a Knights Armament RAS. Rail adapter system is what it stands for, and I have always liked Knights Armament stuff. They're definitely on the high end regarding price. They have a big military contract. They're really hard to get your hands on, and when you do, I think these rails right now are going for over $1,200 on Gunbroker. You know, when in theory it should be a $400, $300 rail. But I really just like the look of it. You know, there's distinct features from the vents to the barrel nut that just give it the look that I wanted. Of course, we do have ADM MQD mount with the Atlas Cal bipod. It's not necessarily what I always run on it, but it's a real comfortable, very stable bipod. We have the Knights Armament broomstick right here. That's just strictly for looks. I will pull that when I carry it. That is just kind of the clone visual that you get with this rifle. The upper and the lower receiver are a very high-end manufacturer. This is a Noveske N4 matched lower and upper. I like it. I've got a Noveske. I've had a few Noveske things, and I have a little N4 switch block shorty super smooth shooting little SBR, but this is a very high-end manufacturer. You're right up along, I would say, with Knight's Armament, and you pay for it. But there's just certain things I like about this. The machined trigger guard, how you have a little bit of a bigger opening if you're wearing gloves, which we never do. I like the design of it. You have a flared mag well, so it's easier to, you know, just little things that you may not need. And attention to detail that they've got, like the pins for the upper and lower have the Noveske logo engraved in them. Just pretty cool features. The optic of my choice on this is the Leupold Mark V MPVO, mid-power variable optic. It's a 2-to-10. Really smooth profile with this optic, especially with the Badger Ordnance Condition 1 mount. This mount is 1.54 height. That's the sight height that it puts you above bore, and it has a 20 MOA cant, which is, that's what I chose for this. I wanted a 20 MOA just because this is you know, a special purpose rifle. This is an SPR. It has the capability with the proper projectile to go a long ways. I would say 1/2 mile, and we'll make sure and give it a run out there on video to see if we can't hit some targets, some steel plates out there at 600, 700, 800 yards. The trigger is a Trigger Tech Duty. I go over all of that. I have some Magpul furniture. That's a Magpul grip. We have a Magpul 20 round mag. I didn't do anything. Oh, before we go there, this is a Noveske ambidextrous charge handle. That's a super badass charge handle. I didn't really go with anything out of the ordinary for the stock. This is just the standard A2, no adjustments. I didn't do anything noticeably different with the buffer or with the spring, which could potentially be an upgrade for me. But as this rifle sits, it is a very smooth, slick shooting rifle. Like I said, I would put this up against any of my ARs that I've previously had in comparison to how smooth it shoots. And this is a really good setup if you're looking for a decent, very accurate mid-range AR platform. Something like this with an 18-inch barrel, MPVO optic, which I should also note, this is a mil adjustment, and it has the TMR reticle with the free-floating dot. The crosshairs do not intersect. I think that's pretty much the whole rundown of the components. So we'll get started on the build from the upper, and we'll go ahead and shoot it once we get done. I just wanted to film a little bit of this so that you guys could see a little bit of the process that I actually did pretty much build this Mark 12 Mod 1 from scratch, or just from the components that I needed. Here's the deal. So I purchased a barrel because at the time it was my only option regarding the SPR contour that allows me to use the Allen Engineering collar with the brake so that I could run the AEM5. And the barrel was cheap. It was a cheap barrel, and it doesn't shoot very good at all. So I hooked up with a company called Compass Lake Engineering, and I got the actual correct barrel for the clone, I believe, which is a Douglas SPR 18-inch 1-in-7. I'll go through all the specs on that, but what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to take the collar off, the brake off, the gas block off, the tube out, the barrel nut, pull this barrel, and I'm going to swap it with the new Douglas and then assemble the whole rifle and go shoot and make sure everything's good to go. All right, so we've got the gas block removed. We have the Allen Engineering collar. Of course, I didn't show you guys a lot of this stuff just to speed it up. There's a set screw at the bottom of that, as well as 2 set screws at the bottom of this gas block. And now I'm gonna remove the barrel nut. We'll pull the barrel. I noticed too, I should tell you guys, I have anti-seize up there. A lot of guys will put thread lock on stuff, and I'll explain to you guys why I did that with this collar and some of the other stuff here, just because it tends to get carbon locked. Maybe not the muzzle device, but regardless, I did put anti-seize on the muzzle brake because of the fact that when I timed this with the crush washer, it was off by about 1/8 of a turn. So I would loosen it, tighten it, loosen, tighten, loosen, tighten, and eventually to get to the position that I needed to. And sometimes you'll see yourself having to do that with the gas block also, just because of the simple fact that you see all of these holes. They serve a couple different purposes. One is your gas tube going up through it into the upper. And the other part is it's got 2 pins that go at 9 o'clock and 3 o'clock so that my Knight's RAS, my quad rail, fits on there. And once I tighten the quad rail onto your barrel nut, it won't shift. Those pins basically, they don't necessarily lock it into place, but they keep it in place. This is a Compass Lake Engineering is who I got this Douglas barrel from. It's an SPR contour, 18 inches long, 1/2 by 28 threads at the muzzle, 7 twist, and the SPR contour is the contour that is needed so that I can run my AEM5 suppressor on it. And I'll show you guys all of that as this build progresses, but it'll allow me to fit the collar. It's machined to fit the collar, and then of course it's 1/2 by 28 for the AE Allen Engineering muzzle brake. And then of course the diameter is correct for the gas block. So I'm excited to get this barrel on and shoot it. We're gonna shoot it right away. One more thing that I would like to note about this barrel, and a lot of other companies do it as well, but it didn't come with, I purchased it, a matched bolt. And what that does is, if you guys are familiar, we do like a lot of custom bolt action rifles. Each one of those rifles is head spaced. That's, if you guys don't know what that term is, just Google it. But regardless, that bolt is head spaced to this barrel. And what that does is it will give you in the end ultimately more reliability and better accuracy. So I got the matched bolt for it, and the bolt that I am going to be using on this build is a land tack. So what I'll do is I'll just pull the bolt off and I'll swap it out with the Compass Lake matched bolt. We should be golden. A lot of times I'll turn this, reverse till I can hear it. You see me going the opposite way till I can hear that click. That means that's the start of the thread. Sometimes it's easier, sometimes it's not. I don't know where torque that. Do I need a torque wrench? Yes, I do. But, so here's what we do. And I can see that I almost have I'll show you here. I'm just going to show you guys. But that's what we're looking for. It's a little bit, I need to torque it just a skosh, 1/16 of an inch or so. A little bit tighter, and that hole right there will line up perfectly with the gas tube. What I'll do is I'll take this upper out and just stand it on end and tighten these set screws down, because there's a groove at the bottom for one of the set screws. There's a drilled groove at the bottom of this barrel. Same thing with the collar. There's no drilled recess for that. But we'll just tighten it snug. That's a real fine Allen screw, so I don't want to get, and actually this barrel, I can tell just by putting this collar on it, the diameter of this barrel is a lot more forgiving than the diameter of the previous barrel, because I had to, on the install, I actually had to tap this sleeve on. All right, guys, always try to keep these on hand. I'm always messing around with flash suppressors or muzzle brakes, and they're basically shims is what they are, timing washers, whatever you want to call them. And each one of these are a different size. To my right, should be your left, probably is going to be the thickest washer, and that's supposed to work if your brake or your muzzle device needs to be turned a half of a rotation, which I just tried it and it didn't work. It just went past a little bit too far. So I'm going to take the next step up. See what this does here. There we go. There we are. I torqued that hard, a little bit harder, and I'm not quite there. I've got some more room to go work with here. So that's perfect. It's perfect right there. All right, now let's throw the quad rail on, the Knights RAS, and we should have this upper almost ready to rock and roll. All right, guys, let's finish up with the Knights RAS, the free floating rail adapter system. And we can't forget about these. Any of you guys that are familiar with this particular rail, you got to have these pins. They go at 3 o'clock and 9 o'clock in your barrel nut. And what those do, you can see right here, boom and boom, basically keep your rail from rotating. It is a little bit of a tight fit over that, but not. I should have took my Badger COM1 mount off, but that's all right. What I'll have to do is I'll have to get like a strap wrench for this. There's a cheat code. I used to have an old SR25, an old school one, and I would almost say maybe like early 90s, somewhere in there. And you can take peel this off and show you. You can take a large crescent wrench and some roll pins that fit here in these recesses. And you essentially take a crescent wrench and you fit a roll pin down here and a roll pin up here, and you can torque it down that way without any kind of damage. Or you can just get a strap wrench, something that will fit over that, and torque it. I'm gonna leave it like this for now, but I guarantee you we'll need to have something a little bit tighter, but there we go. We're set. AEM5 suppressor. Slides right over the muzzle brake. Threads on the muzzle brake. And then as it threads on, the rear of that suppressor seats up onto that collar, the shoulder that's on that collar. It's nice little snug. There we go. I was up till about 1 o'clock last night putting together the lower. I had a stripped Gen 3 Noveski and I got that assembled. So all we really need to do is put her together, swap the bolt out here, and then I've got the Leupold 2-10 Mark V that I'm going to be running on this. Zero it and see how this barrel shoots. All right, let's swap the Landtech bolt with the bolt from Compass Lake. Another thing that I'm going to be swapping out is, this is a Silencer Co. GDCH, gas defeating charge handle, and I don't know if there's a lot of difference between it and the Noveski regarding the design, other than the ambi design here, which both of them are, but this one is a little bit easier to, a little more forgiving, I can tell you. It's a little more tension on this, but I'm going to test the Noveski. We're going to mount the scope. Trigger Tech Duty. It's a 3.5 pound fixed trigger, drop in, simple to use. You literally drop it in, you put the pins in, and then it has 2 Allen screws here that basically bind when you screw them into the receiver, and it binds that trigger up and keeps it fixed in place. I should be able to squeeze that safety past there. I should be able to. On the other one, I couldn't. Yeah. The other one, you had to completely take the trigger out before you installed the safety, but on that, there's plenty of room. This, what size is it? A 1/16 of an inch right here is the Allen key that you'll need, and it's tough to see. You have 2 Allen screws right here. I don't want to get too detailed on this, but they insert here, and what you do is you tighten it, not too tight. They're kind of tough initially, just by nature, so that they don't come unthreaded on recoil. And what it does is, like I said, it binds that trigger so that it puts, essentially what it does is it puts up force down. The screws push down, pushing the rear of the trigger up, and it binds against your trigger keys here, your pins. I haven't had an issue with them yet coming loose, and I've got them on a few of my ARs. With a 45 selector, so safe will be regular, but fire will be about 45. or we can set it to go safe regular 45 at 90. And I have a couple of my rifles set at 45 and I like it and I'm used to it, but on this rifle, since it's not gonna be, I would say like a high speed setup, what I'll probably do is just set this at a traditional 90, because this is gonna be a distance rifle. It's not gonna be close up where we're gonna be doing drills and a fraction of a second is gonna matter. So I think I'm just gonna go with a 90 degree. If you're not familiar with the safeties from Radian, this particular safety can go 45 or 90, like I said. And it's, to note, I've done it before, there's a really fine pin right in the middle of the safety, and underneath that pin is a spring. And if you're not careful, when you push that pin down and push your safety over the top, usually it's on the when you take it apart, that pin will shoot off and the spring will go flying and you have a problem trying to find it. But we got it switched. Safe, fire, 90 degrees.
Especially if it shoots right into the camera lens. That's right.
This is a Badger Condition 1 rail, and it tells you right on the top here, it's laser engraved to 45 inch-pounds with the T20. I was going to run a cantilever style scope mount like I do on my truck gun, and then I've got a couple other ARs that have it, but for a long gun, and when I mean a long gun, for something that I'm going to reach out there a little bit further with or plan on, I don't think that I need to have the option of having my optic set so far forward, because when I prone out, I tend to get a little bit, it's a little bit tougher to get the eye relief when I have like my carbons where I do a lot more standing or kneeling, transitional positions. You know, you can kind of, and plus the stock is collapsible on those. So my ocular lens sets, you know, right above my charge handle. It is a little bit easier to grab your charge handle. And then also you can have a backup iron sight underneath of it. You can see here, I'm not gonna have that option. And actually, I'm not planning on having that on this rifle, but I was planning on setting my ocular lens back here further. And with the new, you know, these style charge handles, ambi with a little bit larger tack latches, I would call them, I'm not gonna run into the issue of not being able to grab and charge around. And that Leupold Mark V 2.5 to 10, or sorry, 2 to 10, with this sight height at 1.54 inch, I'm gonna have plenty of room, and I'll show you guys here what I mean by that. So see here, there's plenty of room. I can get underneath the scope. I can get from the side to rip it back if I need to. I do have a complete leveling kit, but I can tell you I've done it a couple times right here where I have, works really good. I have a balcony and I can sight through, and I have level, plumb crossbars, or I should say vertical up and down crossbars on the edge of that balcony. So I can just go through here like this and sight through and get my crosshairs right in line with that. I'll make sure and level it too, but just for a quick reference, I can tell right now that my optic is basically level, how it is. And then of course I can bring it up, put off and shoulder it, and I can feel it too. Real comfortable. I can tell just by shouldering that rifle, it's gonna be a comfortable setup. The optic that I had on here prior to this was a Nightforce NXS 3.5 to 15, and I'm running a Nightforce Unimount is what they called this, and this is the titanium version, which I believe only the recoil lugs and the clamps here are titanium. I might be mistaken, but I've had this on a couple rifles. I really like this scope. This is an old optic. This is probably getting close to 20 years old now, but it's a badass rifle scope. You can beat the hell out of those things and they just last. But these new optics that are coming out, this particular rifle or this particular scope, the Mark V HD, this is an illuminated version and it is the TMR first focal plane. The reason that I went with the TMR, because in this low of an optic, in this low of a power, I should say, that's an option in this optic. This, I believe, was the only one at the time that allowed me to choose with a center floating crosshair. What I mean by that is where the crosshairs intersect, there's a free floating dot. And I really like that option. Like I really enjoy and use the H59, the Horus H59. I've got that in a couple of the other Mark Vs. I wish that I could get it in this. It just, unfortunately, at the time wasn't an option. Maybe it is now. But regardless, I don't think I'm ever gonna utilize that like I do with my longer guns or longer range guns like the 338 or the 6.5 PRC or my 260 for holds and whatnot. This isn't gonna be able to, to reach that range, or I should say I'm not going to be able to probably shoot steel that far, be able to call shots, so I don't necessarily need to have the option of that H59. This is a lot more simpler. And then another thing too I should note, this is a lot more simple. And another thing too that I should note on here is I really would advise you guys that are getting into first focal plane optics, take a hard look at the illuminated option, because a lot of times in low light conditions, when you need to demagnify, you need to zoom out to bring that light in, your crosshairs disappear. And so on my carbines, on some of my hunting rifles, it's a necessity to have that illuminated reticle just so you can see your reference, where your crosshairs intersect, so that when you zoom out, you have something that you can actually see, because a lot of times it's awful hard to even see your reticle regardless in low light conditions, let alone just on a regular basis, zooming all the way out. You guys that run a lot of first focal plane optics completely understand what I'm saying, but let's get this mounted up and we'll take it to 100 yards or 100 meters and get her pegged out, get her zero verified, and then see what kind of groups we can get with factory. These first 3 shots here were real quick prone, and they were with some factory 55 grain full metal jackets. That's probably just a skosh under an inch. Now we're gonna go with some 69 grain hollow point boat tail Sierra Match Kings. Dude, that's a pretty good group. That was a really fast 3-shot group. And that's a 1/4 inch. Let me make up.
Did my flashbang fall off?
Okay, you should be good. I'm good. We'll be able to see it. No, you hit it. One more. Okay, that's good. I can't see a vapor trail, but I can see your indicator flashing right above his rear end.
Well, I'm pretty sure if you see light that's it. Yes.
Yeah, it's still hard to see.
It through the weeds?
Well, no, just because it's
shit. I can see it good.
No, because it's overexposed in the camera.
Oh,
so it's white, and then you can just see the green. So
because I'm like, dude, I can see that easy as shit, and I'm looking through weeds.
All right, here we go. I'm gonna pan over.
This one's gonna be a little tougher.
And we are What's the distance on that one?
That one's like 608.
Mega. I'm gonna kill it and then I'll zoom back in once. I'm good. Oh yeah. Yep. I can hear the impact barely too.
Well, I got that corn stalk.
So here's a perfect example for you guys that don't reload, that you use factory ammo, okay? Because I was filming through the Swirl and the target is out there at
600-ish.
all right, yeah, it's at little over 600. Okay, it's right along that half circle of corn. I can't zoom in because I'm in image stabilization mode on my phones, but I want to show you guys through here. If it'll, there we go. Sorry. There it is. Right out there. Okay, so here is what happens. He had 2 impacts and you could see the flash on the coyote, his indicator, his flash indicator. So because it's really hard to hear at this distance with a little 69 grain 224 round. Well, his 3rd shot he missed. And what was what happened on the chronograph?
My velocity was averaging 25, 50-ish, pretty good, and it dropped 200 feet per second.
So that's with Black Hills, factory Black Hills ammo with the 69 grain Sierra Match King. One of the rounds, the last round that he shot, so we did 3 shots at 400, 3 shots at 600, a little over 600, and the 3rd shot at 600 he missed, and we were checking the chrono, 200 feet per second slower on his 3rd shot. That's an air ball. So that's a huge benefit to reloading if you reload, because you're not gonna have that kind of an issue if you're that particular about reloading your own ammo.
Scroll down here, edit it out if you want. But you can see I got 2558, 2538, 2527, all pretty consistent, and then you have a 25 or 2355, 200 foot per second drop.
Just that's like that's solid information for you guys that don't reload, that just get factory ammo and expect it to shoot. A lot of times that isn't the case.